go. Okay. We are on to the second to penultimate, right? Penultimate. Yes, the T is soft. So penultimate, Matt's favorite word, segment right here.
It's a good one.
It is, and it's probably the least well-known artist to the general public that are listening.
I would concur with that.
And that would be the WATERBOYS. So, Matt, tell us the numbers.
The WATERBOYS comes in with This Is the Sea is the album that we're covering. Comes in at number 138 in the 1980s on Best Ever Albums, number 13 in 1985, number 912 of all time. It is the WATERBOYS' highest-rated album on Best Ever Albums. It did not make Rolling Stone's list. And the WATERBOYS, they're ranked at number 405 of overall artist rankings. I know Josh gets the first take, but I'm curious, John, where did you come up with this one?
This one was on, once again, we were a few albums short. I think it was like 11, right, to make the full amount of episodes with the structure we have. And so this was from one of the lists, right, of... I don't know if it was Pitchfork or NME. Those are the two lists I used to kind of flesh this out a little bit. It wasn't
post-punk cards or whatever?
No, it was not on that.
No.
It was fleshed in from the top 50 albums, right, of the decade from one of those two publications. So that is how this ended up. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this is a band that I was not familiar with at all, and I had not heard any of these songs before. So it was a real blind spot from me. I would describe this album as kind of having a big sound. They reminded me of that lane that U2 was in, that I think they WATERBOYS were trying to go for. They had the lead singer has this big kind of powerful voice. They have a lot of instrumentation in the album, a lot of like horns and piano and different percussion and like keyboards and synths. I think all kind of create this big like not cacophonous sound, but full sound, and it kind of like big emotions and like big almost in the same way too that like Tears for Fears was in some ways, like kind of really like going for it musically. I don't know, it just felt like when I was listening to it, they were like out front and center, like giving it all they've got in some way, and that's how I would kind of describe this album. I think there's some maybe also some kind of I don't know, like Van Morrison vibes or something. I think they're trying to kind of, it's got a Britishness to it that is a little nostalgic, and they're also writing about love and I don't know, kind of British in the way that the Kinks were as well. It's got this quality that I can't quite put my finger on, but I enjoyed the album, and but there wasn't really like kind of some strong, there wasn't really like a big single on this for me that jumped out that like said, wow, this is like the hit. Like, I'm surprised I didn't hear this somewhere or something like that. All the songs are pretty good, but they weren't like great to me, or there wasn't like one real standout track for me. So I'm curious kind of like what the legacy of this band is and like kind of what their influence is, it looking back, after the fact, but
I pulled up the like who they were influenced by. If you are curious about that, you said you're curious.
Yeah.
He said his influences were the Velvet Underground,
okay.
Steve Reich,
who's that?
Patti Smith, David Bowie, Bob Dylan, and Van Morrison.
Okay.
And critics often compared the band to Van Morrison and U2, which, I mean, you mentioned Van Morrison, and certainly U2 was a band that I wrote down was there too. So, yep, that tracks, I'd say.
Okay. Who's Steve Reich? Have we talked about him before?
He had an album. There was an album, I think it was like called 16 Songs or something like that I know is well regarded. But I couldn't tell you what it sounds like. I actually was hoping we would cover it a little bit because I hear about it a lot. But yeah, I'm not much of a reference for you on that, unfortunately.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I found this album pretty engaging, and there's a lot of variety on it in terms of instrumentation. So yeah, thumbs up. I'd say a mild thumbs up for me on this one.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, so this came out of nowhere. I had never heard of these guys, and was really pleasantly surprised. So my first reaction to this was, this sounds, oh my gosh, this sounds like the Delta Spirit. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that band, but the vocalist, the lead vocalist, sounds just like the Delta Spirit guy. So if anybody's familiar with that, that's the immediate thing that I went to. Also, the sound of this record is definitely not of 1986. This is to me much more of a, kind of early, mid 2000s, to early late 2000s kind of vibe, with just, kind of more of a, it's not necessarily alternative. It's definitely like Josh is right. It's a very full sound. It's a lot of anthemic, kind of big sounds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting instrumentation, notably like a lot of piano, there's some violin in here. And saxophone are kind of, three instruments that they use interchangeably amongst, more traditional drums, bass, guitar. And it does weave in and out pretty easily. This type of sound is certainly much more up my alley. I really liked it from the start. I would probably agree, Josh. I don't know if there was necessarily any song that stood out, although I felt like the 1-2 punch of the first two songs was pretty solid. Don't Bang the Drum and The Whole Moon. I really liked both of those. I love the way it ends with the acoustic guitar with This Is the Sea. I thought that was kind of a, it's an anthemic song with an acoustic guitar as the driving instrument behind it, which is kind of an interesting thing. But a lot of energy, great rock music. I wouldn't say it's necessarily breaking down any barriers or reinventing anything, but just really solid songwriting, I think, and it kept me interested throughout. I was getting a little bit of, maybe it's the Pan Within, but I was kind of getting some of the kind of how do I want to say it? A little bit of The Cure, kind of, Jesus and Mary, not Jesus and Mary Chain.
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Echo and the Bunnymen. Thank you. Yeah, there's I
picked up on that too.
Thank you. Yes, there's some vibes of that. That's kind of that still kind of reminds you it's a little bit in the lane of the '80s. But most of this to me just this more of a modern rock kind of thing that's got like a boisterous, almost like Fun. That's another band that kind of like a bigger sounding kind of like rock/pop band. So I can't say that I don't think this is going to get to the level of like, oh, this is one of my favorite albums of the decade. I don't think that, but I think they're definitely going to be on my list as a surprise band that I knew nothing about, that I really enjoyed, that kind of came out of nowhere. I did read a little history. They're still around. It's mostly one guy by the name of Mike Scott, but there's been like 85 different members in the band, and he made some comment like he thinks that they have the record for the most band members of any band ever. So if it's truly 85, I think it is, because if you look at their Wikipedia page, there's like tons of freaking past members and whatnot. So they certainly could make the case for that. But I'm definitely a fairly solid thumbs up on this. This was a nice surprise and just a really solid upbeat pop rock album for me. So.
Yeah, if Quiet Storm R&B and discordant guitars, Matt, are kind of like a little bit of your challenge, like the genre of like Celtic tinged like rock mixed with like Springstonian era like bombast and like mild sax, I'd say. I didn't hate this album, but this is the very definition of an album. When it was done, I was like, okay, so we covered that. And like, I don't want to be dismissive, and I'll try to go back. But this is the very definition of an album. It's like, yeah, I'm never going to be revisiting that album again. Like, it's a lot of hallmarks that are like tough for me. It's like I felt like the drum, like every single track was like, just hitting the drum, and then like when it got to that, it was like, like the fill, like with the rapid fill, and it was like by the 8th time I'd heard that like drum pattern, I'm like, there just was nothing really interesting going on the drums for me. Like as the Celtic stuff would come in, I was like, it's because it's just it's not an easy sound for me, and it wasn't delivered like maybe as spirited as like the Pogues were, where like a band we covered recently that I thought at least built it in. It kind of like I was writing like I don't want to just use other. It was kind of like if you took the Fairport Convention, but you like threw it through like a Springsteen era, like accompaniment, I'd say, mixed with like earnest U2 level lyrics and sound, right? But without the edge, like noodling with his guitar work, right? It was more sort of, it was a little bit disposable for me, I'd say. And my take is when you've heard like the seventh anthem on an album, like it's not an anthem anymore. Cause it's like, I need, if I'm going to have an anthem, I want one anthem, and that's my joke about Springsteen all this. It's like, how many times can I hear an epic before it doesn't have any epic qualities anymore? Right. It's kind of like, I will budget you exactly one, perhaps two on a particularly nostalgic night epic. But when you're giving me sort of the sixth anthemic song, I wear my tank runs down a little bit, right? And it's like, to meet it there. So I can't say I love this album. With that being said, I can't say I hated this album either. Now I will say Medicine Bow was probably my favorite song on this album. Yeah. In terms of listening to it. Interestingly enough, I see on Spotify that The Whole of the Moon is the song that by far has the most plays. And did that song stand out to you guys more than the other songs by a factor of 112 million plays?
No.
Because like when I wrote notes, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, this song was clearly the single, or this song, I would have actually guessed like Don't Bang the Drum, right? Or The Pan Within, right? Would have been more likely to have been the breakthrough single. So the only thing I can guess is that The Whole of the Moon had to have been tied to some sort of modern television show, right? Yeah, it's like, it has to be, right? Like when a song has 112 million more plays. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that had to have been played somewhere and connected with people. So, but yeah, as soon as I heard this, I said, Matt's going to love this, and Josh will probably have a mixed opinion, but lean to the favorite. And I don't want us to be that predictable, but
sometimes we are.
Sometimes we have our tendencies, right? And we have to be honest about what our tendencies are. And I definitely think there are things in this lane that are there. But like even kind of the stuff you were saying, Matt, like it's like fun. And I'm like, oof, that almost sounds like a pejorative term, right? Like a threat. Yeah. It's like if you'd said to me, listen, I think you might like this. It's like fun, right? I will never forget that they will remain nameless. But someone one time who is very dear to me, right? Was trying to connect with me on music, and I remember they very earnestly said to me and said, I think that you'll like this band. They're very similar to like I think a lot of stuff that you like. Their name is Fun. And I remember saying, oh, it's really cool that this person tried to connect. I remember listening to Fun, and it's that terrible feeling you have when you realize this person knows nothing about my tastes. If they and it's kind of like that feeling where you get context. So I just wanted to share that story because it's funny. So like when somebody says that, or it's like, I don't know if you want to say that, Matt. That's like basically this album didn't deserve that level of blasphemy, right? So, but it also resides a little bit in that anthemicness that, became like Mumford and Sons and years later, like it
of
resides.
Monsters and Men, I think.
Of Monsters and Men, yes.
All that
and
stuff.
That is, I think I can say a difficult genre for me. I would say is that it is a channel turn genre for me. I would not say that I wanted to turn this off. It was certainly unthreatening enough and not
inoffensive.
So inoffensive. Yes, is the word I'm going for. But yeah, there was nothing transcendent enough that brought me in, and I did think that some of the hallmarks of the sound started repeating themselves after a while, and not necessarily a good way. Yeah,
no, I would agree with that.
The drums or the sax or the yearning, earnest, like belting, not belt, like earnest. I'd say lyrics. Yeah.
No, and I think you're probably right that the it would have done better. He would have done better to kind of have thrown more like slow it down a little bit or take some stuff off of it. You know, to mix up the variety of what you're hearing. So I get that, and I think that definitely probably knocked it down a peg or two for me, because it's kind of like, wow, you're just getting, it's like it starts off at like an 8 or a 9, and it hovers in that range basically throughout the entire record. So
Right.
it
That's
is
a good
better
way to put
if an album can kind of fluctuate with that, and I think I still like that 8 and 9, like generally speaking, and that's why I'm glad it's not a terribly long record. Although there's a couple of songs in here that hit the
You like
6-minute
people
mark.
like Frank Turner too, who I also think
yeah.
shares some characteristics with this type stuff, right? So
I think he's way better than this, though. But
well,
yes.
yeah, I'm just saying it resides a little bit, right? I feel like he's always either 8 or 9, and unless he's singing his wistful ballad, and then he's down at 2 or 3, right?
He mixes it up way more, but yeah, he definitely has the earnest nature, that the Springsteen like kind of like, if you ever see the live show, I don't know what these guys are like live, but you know, sometimes you get the interaction with the crowd and trying to like, this is the moment, we're all in this moment now, and let's, you know, kind of trying to,
we're all here together. And like there's a there's a lot of there's a lot of lyrics like on this one, like the whole of the moon, you were there at the turnstiles with the wind at your heels, you stretched for the stars and you know how it feels. Not like awful, right? But like also like, to me, it's the type of lyrics, right, that I know you said earlier that you found like Kim Gordon at times pretentious, right, with the spoken word, which I get, right? But to me, I think for me, it's more like interesting, right? Whereas this is sort of like, I would look at someone who like put those lyrics up on a wall and stuff and kind of be like, what is that saying? You know what I mean? Like, it's not bad, right? But like, what is that like evoking in you, right? You know what I mean? Like, how does it move you or drive you, right? And if someone's like, you know, like, there's a lot of lyrics like that, so I just look to see what can I write down to do.
It's a little
so
schmaltzy.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's inoffensive, but it's like let's just put it this way: the lyrics are not a +1 in this package for me. Yeah,
and that's not would make me gravitate towards it anyway. But yeah,
so
no.
Where do you guys stand on the thumbs up, middle? Because you know, as we try to archive our stuff.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a thumbs up for me. It's not like a way up. Oh my god, it's amazing, but like it's a thumbs up in the realm of like, I'm glad I now know another band that I never heard of, and this is from 1986. Like that's the other thing. It doesn't sound like that at all. It sounds way more modern to me than that. So I like these types of surprises.
How about you, Jess?
Yeah, I'm thumbs up. I was kind of doing a little research while you guys were talking, and this is by the Whole of the Moon is by far their most famous song, not just from the historically, not just from the Spotify plays, but it was their most popular song in the UK also.
Wow. And
it appeared in this movie in 2019 on Netflix, the holiday movie called Let It Snow, which is like a teen movie as well, and the two leads play the song in a church or something, and so maybe that was why that's why you know, it's got a lot of plays recently. Maybe people revisiting it or something.
And I think I could see why that's the big song. I mean, it didn't. I would agree, John. I don't think it stood out to me as being like, wow, that's the song. But like, if you just think of it, like the bouncy nature of it, the piano like in the forefront, just the kind of it there's some. I get it. I get why that would be it. You know. But I also think that there could have been a couple of other songs on here that would have been like that as well, but it's not terribly surprising that that's the hit.
Well, and obviously my scale is a little bit more complex or convoluted depending on if you're being charitable or non-charitable to me, right? But I was gonna put this in like the neutral category for me, but then I have to put it in the not recommend for me, because while it certainly isn't offensive, there's just people that do this style of music, I feel, that just do it better, right? And it's not a music that hits my ear well. And so the combination of music that doesn't hit my ear well, you know, for me, when you are a leader in the genre or you bring something to it, it can move it up for me, that even if it's not my first choice, I can appreciate the art more and grow into it. I just don't know if this had it, because I just kept thinking like, do I need this in a world where there's the better Bruce Springsteen songs or U2 exists? Like I just feel there's people that scratch this itch, quite a bit. I never thought, by the way, guys, that you talked about the Echo and the Bunnymen thing, but especially that second Echo and the Bunnymen album that we covered, right? I do see similarities to that, and I did like that album. So maybe that's another one where I'm like, was that Porcupine? The second one, or was it Ocean Rain? Ocean Rain.
Ocean Rain.
Was the...
Ocean Rain, yeah. So the Ocean, I think like Ocean Rain did some of this.
I think that came out first. Did that come out? I think we inverted.
Yeah, we
those.
covered them in reverse order.
Oh wait, no,
We
did. No,
switched
what
them,
we
I
did
think.
was we covered them in the right order. We just did the
Right.
bio on the lower ranked album. Was what happened. So.
But yes, there are two very different sounding albums.
They
But yes,
were,
the
yeah.
second one that was more poppy.
Actually, I think I liked Porcupine better, if I recall correctly.
The first one, yeah, you did. I
Yeah.
think I was the only one that liked the second album. We covered Ocean Rain better than Porcupine. So,
No, I think I liked Ocean Rain more than Porcupine.
did you? Okay. We'll have to dig back in the stacks.
Oh, yeah.